Hello everyone and welcome back to Chapter by Chapter, King of Scars. Today we are on a Nikolai chapter, which I'm pretty excited for, surprisingly. The only thing I kind of have a little problem with is that this chapter was a little long for my taste. I feel like it could have been broken up into two different parts.
Won't get into it too much now.
There is a part where Nikolai talks with Grigori a lot, and I wish it kind of would have just stopped after that, because I would have liked that information to sink in a little bit more before we jump right into all of these lessons with Elizaveta, which has a lot of information too. But anyways, still a pretty good chapter overall, very informative, very long, and let's jump right in. Chapter opens with Nikolai struggling to acclimate to his surroundings, which is very unlike him. He is so desperately tired, but when he tries to lay down, sleep won't come. They already told him it wouldn't, but he still tried. We do find out that there is no track of time here in the fold, and he's losing count of his days. So time might not necessarily be moving differently. There's just no sense of time at all. So from what we learned in the chapters where they're not in the fold, time is moving by. Like, we're already into the fall autumn nonsense thing. So they've been in the fold a little while. Nikolai's determined to at least get some rest if he can't fully sleep. While he's laying there, he finds himself wondering what everyone's doing back at home. He knows that the twins saw him vanish, and he wonders what course of action they would take. He wishes that they had more time to work with Isaac so that they would have just had a replacement for him. Nikolai isn't even giving anyone much credit back home. Like, this is already going on. It's very ironic that you're thinking of this. But they got it taken care of. So I'm wondering if when he does come home and he realized they didn't need him as much, if he's gonna be a little upset by that.
His ego's gonna be hurt.
But Nikolai thinks, at least if I conquer this demon and survive, we'll be able to salvage the Festival of Autumn nonsense. He needs to marry right away. He needs to take Zoya's advice, find a bride, make an alliance, make an heir. He's saddened by this though, because he will just be acting for the rest of his life, be in a loveless marriage with a stranger like his parents did. His super happy thoughts are broken up by a little sound outside of his door. He finds a bear cub is there pulling on his pant leg, telling him to follow him. When you see a bear cub, especially if it has little wheels as back feet, you follow it. Because it's a bear, it obviously leads him to Grigori's tower. And it's really sad because Grigori's hiding in a corner, worried about Nikolai even looking at him. And I hate that we called him the grotesque before we knew his name, because it just makes me feel gross. I don't like it. It just keeps getting sadder because we find out he can't even control the forms that he takes anymore. It used to just be him and the bear inside his mind, very similar to Juris and his dragon. But now his body is racing to meet any thought that crosses his mind. It's exhausting. Nikolai's trying to break the tension a little bit, and he's like, oh, I hate to break it to you, but I think I wore that bear pelt at my coronation. Grigori's like, no, that was definitely a fake. Your priests were duped. The bear never died just as much as he never died. Nikolai asks, oh, the bear became your amplifier. But Grigori says it's much more complicated than that. Nikolai starts to remember a bit of Grigori's story. He knew he was a young healer who was able to cure the most hopeless causes. The more well-known one being a nobleman's son that he cured of some incurable disease. And the nobleman's doctor freaked out. He didn't want to be out of a job. So, just say this guy's dabbling in dark magic, get him killed. So as punishment for dabbling in the dark arts, Grigori is set out into the woods to be torn apart by beasts. Instead of dying that night like intended, Grigori fashioned an instrument out of the bones of the people who died before him, put the bears right to sleep. They slept at his feet. But when he came out of the woods unharmed, no one was happy about it. He was sent right back in, this time with his hands bound, couldn't play the music, and the bears that just slept at his feet the night before devoured him.
Ugh, God.
I feel like this is even worse, if not just as bad as Elizaveta being drawn and quartered. Ugh. As Nikolai's remembering the story, he's like, oh yeah, just typical Ravkin reading for a child. There was some fact to the stories that Nikolai heard. Grigori was in fact a healer, but he did a lot of things that he shouldn't have. He had no care for the boundaries that governed his powers. He only thought of what can I do rather than should I do it. He made babies for mothers with no children. He even made this huge 12-foot soldier to protect a castle. Now Grigori knows that creation should have been left to the first maker. So because he used this dark abomination magic, He lost all control over his own form. You think this would be a cautionary tale, but no. People are drawn to power. People set off to find him and learn from him, no matter how disturbed they were by how he looked. He took on hundreds of students over time, and he taught them to use their gifts for healing and combat. They actually ended up going out into the world bearing his name, or some form of it. The light bulb goes off in Nikolai's head. He's like, Grigory, Grisha. Nikolai can't believe that this is where it all started. Grigory's so sweet. I'm just so surprised that he used that dark magic. I guess he learned the error of his ways and he had hundreds of years to do it and turn into the person he is now. I'm sure his form constantly changing just took a toll on him, and he had to think about all of those things he shouldn't have done. Grigory lets Nikolai know that even though he's really used to his hermit ways, Nikolai can come to him anytime he needs anything. Grigory is very relatable,
I like to stay inside my house and hide from people as well.
Grigory really hopes that Nikolai can endure this really hard training he's going to have to face with Elizaveta. He makes sure to remind him what exactly is at stake here if he fails. The world is changing, and because everything is connected, Grisha power is changing with it. And if the fold continues to exist, that won't remain the same either. Another mind blower for this chapter, Grigory tells us what caused this great shift and what made the demon be able to rise again inside of Nikolai. It was all because of Parem. Nikolai says, hey, we tried to get rid of it, and Grigory gets upset. He's like, no, you didn't try to get rid of it, you tried to change it and bend it to your will. That's different. If they weren't drawn to its power and tried to make it their own, then this would have never happened. We're seeing a lot of power being drawn to power. Grigory reminds Nikolai that everything is connected, and the fold is a wound that might not be meant to heal. And that's something he should really remember during his trial. Grigory definitely seems to have learned from all of his past behavior, but why is he saying that the fold is a wound that maybe shouldn't heal? I don't want him to be bad. And of course, Yuri comes and interrupts this moving, deep conversation that they are having. But at least he's coming to collect him for his lessons with Elizaveta. And on their way, Nikolai wants to go and grab Zoya too. They just have to find her in this massive sandcastle. Yuri isn't very thrilled by the thought of bringing Zoya along. He didn't like what she said to the pilgrims about the Darkling. He doesn't get how one of the Darkling's favorites could dislike him so much now. Nikolai asks him, well, what do you think fuels that anger? The answer to that is hate. And hate that started as devotion is even worse than just the regular kind of hate. But Yuri just thinks the Darkling did all of these horrible things for Ravka. He wasn't a good man, but he had a vision. Nikolai disagrees. The Darkling was obviously delusional. The Darkling claimed to serve Ravka, but as soon as Ravka didn't want to go along with what he said, he turned on them. He broke the entire nation into war. That doesn't serve the Ravkan people. This whole conversation about whether the Darkling's a good man or not leads Yuri to talk about all of the Lanistov kings that came before Nikolai. Nikolai doesn't claim they were good men either. They all had their faults. And then I was surprised when the conversation shifted to maybe Ravka one day not needing a monarch. Nikolai says that's the whole reason he's been strengthening all of the local governors. Nikolai's worried that change will take too much time, and the Ravkan people have never experienced ruling for themselves, and they have to learn how to do that first. They might not be ready for it yet. This makes Nikolai realize how vulnerable he left Ravka. He left it with no heir and with no instruction on who should lead after he is gone. There's only one person, though, that he could think could fill the position, and that's Zoya. Grigory's little bear leads them to Juris's tower, and they find Juris and Zoya training pretty hard. This is the first time that Nikolai sees Zoya using her newfound power. And by the way, Zoya's enjoying it. Juris is super annoyed that they came to collect Zoya. He thinks her time is better served with him. Juris even tells Zoya, king and country are not the same, and you'll see that over time when your king is old and dies, and you will remain powerful. And then that's what Nikolai's thinking about the whole way over to Elizaveta's tower. Would the people even accept Zoya as their leader because she's Grisha? Or would they end up finding her to be a natural the longer she lived and the more powerful she got and the longer she ruled? Doesn't really comfort him either to know that he will be long dead when all of that that would be a problem. They finally make it to Elizaveta's tower, and this one is different from Grigori's and Juris's. Nikolai says that her space feels and looks like a holy temple. There was a glow coming from the amber walls, with giant insects frozen in each panel. Very Jurassic Park. And when Elizaveta emerges, there's this radiance about her.
Like, where's the radiance coming from? Where's the glow coming from? Like, not this place, it's magic.
Elizaveta's really trying to look holy. They start discussing what's gonna go down during this ritual. Elizaveta even has a little baby flower pot with a little baby thornwood on her table. She lets Nikolai know you're gonna have to take one of those thorns and drive it into your heart and the demon's once you call him out. Zoya is like, how exactly is he going to survive that? But Nikolai's survival is up to him. If his will is strong enough, he will survive. Elizaveta lets him know that the pain's gonna be bad, like the worst pain you ever felt in your life. But that's not even the worst part. Facing the monster is going to be much, much worse. It is a piece of the Darkling's power that has in fact been living inside of Nikolai all this time. Not only just living there, but learning about Nikolai too. Elizaveta asks Nikolai, do you think you can defeat the Darkling? He's like, yeah, I did it once before. Zoya reminds him, it wasn't you, it was Alina who defeated the Darkling.
Thank you, Zoya.
At the mention of Alina's name, Elizaveta's like,
Ugh, the sun saint.
she thinks the people were just so desperate for miracles that they clung to Alina. You with your fake glow, trying to look all holy and saint-like, and you're bashing Alina. Elizaveta isn't really like a saint either. The people made her a saint. She obviously still lived on and all that stuff. So why are you bashing Alina? She just seems very stuck up and very full of herself, and I don't like it. You're not dead either. You weren't fully martyred either, so get over it. But anyways, Elizaveta lets Nikolai know this isn't exactly the Darkling you are facing. It's a creature animated by the Darkling's will, like a bit of a shadow. No matter what this thing is though, Nikolai is ready to face it. Elizaveta's like, yeah, I hope so, and sends the thornwood shooting straight at Nikolai. Nikolai's kind of like, yeah, this is a tactic just to scare me. Like, I know what you're doing. It's not really working. So Elizaveta has to come up with something that will scare Nikolai. She's been seeing the way he looks and talks to Zoya, so she traps her in this little amber tomb. Not only that, but it's rapidly filling with a golden substance. Zoya is obviously freaking out, and Nikolai tries to reach for her, but he can't. The thornwood just encloses all around him. Elizaveta is using this to taunt the demon out of him. The only way he can get to Zoya is by flying. Nikolai is trying so hard to summon the demon, but it just isn't working. If he was listening to him, he didn't really seem to care. But he's still thinking, oh, this is just a ploy to get the demon out. Like, Elizaveta's not gonna let anything happen to Zoya until he hears Zoya scream. He goes charging through the brambles to get to her, and as he goes to call out her name, it comes out as a snarl. Nikolai can feel the demon coming out of him. He can feel it clawing up his chest. Nikolai doesn't want to give in to this demon, but he has to. The only thing he can do is just keep saying to himself, remember who you are, over and over again. Elizaveta's looking up at him, very proud, and of course, Yuri's weeping.
Shocker.
Nikolai's desperately trying to break Zoya free, and while he's doing this, he can feel the monster trying to gain control. But since Nikolai can't get Zoya out, he looks over to Elizaveta, who then releases her, and the thornwood just shrivels on the floor. Nikolai goes over to Zoya, and he's scooping her up, making sure she's okay. Zoya's a bit freaked out because, she's being coddled by the demon. But as he is cuddling her, the smell of her and her fear is mixing with the honey that she was encased in. And Zoya doesn't just smell good.
She smells good.
He's hungry. Again, he's frantically telling himself, remember who you are, remember who she is, which is basically like, remember you love her. He's thinking of all of the times that him and Zoya spent together. This gets the monster to go back down inside of Nikolai. He's kneeling on the ground after this, absolutely terrified to look up at Zoya. He doesn't want to see the disgusted look that she has on her face. But instead, Nikolai feels Zoya's hands on his shoulders, and he looks up at her, and she's proud. He opened the door. Zoya isn't even worried about having to do this over and over and over again. She's willing to do it if it will help Nikolai. She's just worried about getting all that honey out of her hair, but Elizaveta helps with that. But it isn't all happy. Nikolai can still feel the monster. Sure, he opened the door, but the next time the demon comes through, is he going to be able to close that? So another chapter down, a lot of information taken in, thoughts from it all. Love Grigori. hope he isn't secretly evil. Hate Elizabetta, she's annoying and a
Bitch.
can't talk badly about Alina, can't be annoyed with Zoya, like...
Something's off with you.
I still have a really bad feeling about one of these saints, or two of them maybe even, like, not being truthful about what's going on. Really hoping it's not Juris, because I don't think Zoya could take another letdown like that. Whenever they went into the training room, she was enjoying herself, doing some witty banter with Juris, so she likes him now. He obviously likes her if he's picking her to teach all of this knowledge to and to train. But why doesn't Juris like Nikolai? Maybe it's like a dad that thinks this kid isn't good enough for my daughter.
Dumb, but whatever.
And before I start rambling on like I have been after these chapters where your mind just goes, wow, Grigori was the first Grisha? That's a big deal. Okay, now I think I'm done. So thank you very much for joining me. Hope you come back next time for more chapter by chapter King of Scars. Feel free to do the liking and the subscribing and the commenting down below. And I will see you guys next time.